fine day, my fellow students. I've enjoyed the Buddhism Day of Buddhism in National Memorial last week. Are you on atheism or do you have any religious belief? So we have 2 days in National Memorial, Christmas and the Day of Buddhism. So we actually equal. There is also a matter of controversy in last decades about the establishment of national holiday in terms of what. How do you shape the polish about the religion? So, actually, the constitutional question revolving around how the extent of entanglement of secular powers in the religions, also freedom of expression and equal protection concerned to describe the scope of policy. So that we need to be sensitive about dealings. In the lesson of TV, we have witnessed the growth of apostles, Buddhism on the rally, on the airport. What the grievance they raised to protest. And now we're close to the end of this term, probably a couple of weeks ahead. So we need to test on class progress, and also I'd like to state a gentle reminder about the final exam. So you can expect that we will take the final exam, and so you completed the research paper in midterm assessment, and I received many of the drafts well prepared by email and in person office. So the next alternative in the coming final exam should be a mode of classroom presence, and you need to respond to the questions presented to you, which would be a full but under your option. So you may choose 2 of them and can write your answer either in English or Korean. So I like make it more clear by posting the public notice in the website assigned to this class purpose. So you could visit and confirm the exact mode of exam and hours. Usually 18 minutes was set to test your capability about reading and spotting point of contention when you are asked to describe and argue. So, and it could be a consummate with your final viewpoint or a personal opinion to assess the topic presented to you. And the scope of exam also should be confined to class discussion scope. So you may prepare the exam by reviewing the class delivery online and other written materials distributed through the term. So, for the couple of weeks ahead, we plan to explore the rest of a Soviet communist legal traditions. In this class, we'll see the part, a section, the theology of socialist law. So you can see a genuine point, which makes point of distinction against other traditions. How do we state a theology when we discuss law and legal system? So I've stated that the Soviet socialist ideology quite the nature of a quasi-religious quality. So that is given in kind of a dogmatic force and dominate in a hegemony of ideological frame to inculcate through each mind of a Soviet constitutions, a communist constitutions and members. So actually they require the constituent or the citizen denizens to have a kind of a beliefs of can be viewed kind of intoxication also. And must be captive to adhere with strictly the communist command. And then the next topic would surface the title the historical foundation of socialist legal system. So I've articulated in three stages, which should be opposite to understand the communist legal system. So you can see in the pre-revolutionary stage, that can be denominated in French with pays de droit écrit. Pays de droit coutume. What does this mean? Pays. In French, it means a region or area. Droit, it means law. So you can see in the map, world map, the vast area of a Russian Federation now. And they have two major sections, east, of Asiatic nature, and west, the European nature. So we have different conceptualization, since it is fairly antedated a context, pre-revolutionary. So for the East, pays de droit coutume could properly denote the nature of law practiced in that area. And pays de droit écrit would profile more strongly for the west of Russia. And in this period, you can see a primitive form of a codification movement pioneered by a Russian Empire, and as a feudal mode of governance initiated many attempts to codify, and in some cases the movement should be seen successful, but many cases may fail to realize it. So actually, the codification context comes more clearly and in modern terms since new economic policy led by Stalin. So I, in previous class, ascribed him as father of a Soviet Union, a Soviet communism, and he also made a profound impact to the revolutionary Russia. So he led the steer to in engineering the early communism in Soviet in kind of a state administration. So it is in their philosophy and perspective, it should be interim and temporary to a what they eventually envisage a status or a low risk a Russia. So their perception of our role also comes in alliance with a kind of a concept. For example, they see the device of law or legal system symbiotic with the state, the concept of state. So they combine in its destiny. So it cannot be separated, and so that is the idea that Stalin has employed to administer the revolution in Russia. So why do we hesitate to keep on the few idealistic form of a communism? So the working class need to exploit the state and also a law to respond to the socialist needs. They have some different perception between a socialism and a communism. So eventually, they have to engineer the society to the idealistic communism. And they may imagine the kind of monolithic tranquility and maximum extent of individual talent. And the aspiration may be traced back to early years of a idealistic scene describing our community. Have you any sense or imagination about the context? But how much is the vision realistic in this real? And you can see the second stage, a term, the bridge years, the impact from Lenin and Stuka is profound to address the years, but actually they should tilt on the earlier stage of revolution. So it is cumbersome to handle the legal system in more comprehensive viewpoint. And as I pointed in the last class, Lenin has a basic perspective about dualism between the political arena and also and a law, and the perception is strong toward the political and economic ideology, and other than legal system. But we can see some scope of success, not comprehensive at all, about the improvement of legal system. You can see some of story in later of this class. Then we progress to review the socialist theory of law. And actually, you need to have some awareness about the hierarchical structure to address the political ideology. So the first theme we need to investigate should be the fundamental propositions about a historical materialism. So, and the viewpoint is very ordinate, and you can see the context of a profit in its own framework to the demise of a staged mode of a production arrangement. So you can see a slavery system of economy, and also a feudal system, and a bourgeois system or bourgeois law, which they see the nature of a capitalism, and also the final destination should be a communism. How do you assess? In practice, however, we see some reversed tendency in the Eastern Europe around 1990s. Poland is one of a progeny of a communist socialist legal system previously, but they have reformed in extend the context to the plurality of a party politics. They constitutionally waive the dictatorship of a communist party, and also they prescribe the free election terms in the constitution, and many elements of a liberalistic and capitalistic constitution were incorporated in the late 18th or early 19th reform of Polish constitution. And in any case, for the communists, the primacy of ideas and the intellectual understanding as strength from a political and economic ideology. So we have chance to review the brief statement in principle and very concise, kind of a Bible to understand our society in historical forms. Do you see it proper to contextualize the stage in any artificial way? How do you agree? What do you see many of a occasionalism, incidental, what does the word mean? And so we are in the face of the nature of law or discussion. Alexis Ancilla Politica. So their perception is that the law is secondary to politics, is in the Latin words. But they do not disregard the laws of law and legal system. They saw many scope of a efficiency and utility from the legal tools, and they perceive it a tool. So the strong sense is coupled with the policy or public policy concept rather than law and legal institutions. And anyway, they prefer the status of law in similar element with the liberalist system. So we have four points of critical vegetation to understand the Soviet legal system: raison temporis, raison materiae, raison personnel, territorial limitations. Among these four, what is most pertinent to the communists? Of course, raison materiae. So only this element is dominating over the course of a legal process. Others are submissive to basic rules developed by a Western history or so. So they share three elements in common with a Western liberal state, but only the raison materiae uniquely profile to preempt the legal system. So the laws of a communist are not subject to raison temporis. So the list description and a statute provision is constantly effective, if not revoked clearly. So it continues if without any additional saying of a revocation. It is not temporary, but continual nature until the legislature recant a promise in the statute of provision. And what is raison personnel? So the law is not confined to the individual specifically. So their scope of application could be larger. The scope of individuals triggered by legislative package, as you see, and the process of legislation is also typical with many points of distinction against the liberalist. And also they set territorial limitations, but it is corroborate with terms the legislature set forth. If the legislation is silent about territory, it usually means that it can be applied to the whole scope of nation entirely. So you can see commonality involving 3 elements, except for raison material. So next to the nature of law discussion, we have a chance to review the general principles of law, which are not entirely disparate, mostly similar in many senses of legal understanding, you can see, and our describe it in some more detailed fashion to show you them. So the conception is very ordained of the basic disposition toward the historical materialism. So the classes of law may underlie in 4, covering a law of slavery, feudal law, bourgeois law, and socialist law. And you can see the exact nature of the final delivery about law. So they have perception and ideas about utility temporarily, but eventually the legal institution should be a grave digger for demise of law and legal system. So they are destined to dispense away eventually, but that is not stated until these times. And finally, our usual points of vegetation about the distribution of socialist law. So actually, I have detailed context of a global distribution of socialist law. You can see the major pillars in twin, Chinese law and Soviet law. And there is ongoing debate about the true character of Chinese law. One group saw the Chinese law as a progeny of a Far Eastern legal system. So they actually preserves in dominant fashion the ancient mode of Oriental legal system. So the engine of comparatives, they should see the Chinese law as one of Oriental system, not a Western legal family. And the opposing view is far stronger. That the intermixed nature of a Chinese law does not necessarily mean it is a Oriental system. Rather, there are a fundamental shift by incorporating the Western legal system in the mainland China around 1979. So, notwithstanding this debate, we have well burst with 2 subgroups between Soviet and Eastern Europe, China, and China and Southeastern. I'm not sure to reach the legal this portion, legal structures in socialist nations, but if we are available, we plan to explore in order first the Communist Party. So, and next a trade union organization. So you are led to see the unique dealings to denote the order. So a primacy of communism and the dictatorship of Communist Party is absolute. And in the next hierarchy, you can see the importance of trade union organizations, since they class the working peers as dominant in idealistically and ideologically. So many contexts of governance may find in the experiment of trade union organizations. They are a grassroots, classroom, as I mentioned previously, and delegated many powers of state in the Western perspective to the trade union organization, which of course not amenable to the separation of powers principle or the relativism or a proportionality understanding of arrangement or kind of a liberty virtue. So they are coupled to rule in preeminence. So all the state organs are submissive to the command of Communist Party, and also the idealist dominance of trade union organizations, and they also pertinent in reality. And the next section was titled Separation of Powers Principle Rejected. So it is one kind of bulwark, as you in your knowledge, of course, to ensure the liberty interest and in next order, you can see the legislature, executive, and judicial and quasi-judicial organs. And I advise this order kind of a higher influence. So the legislature, of course, is subject to the direction of Communist Party, is the supreme organ of the state. And in next, the executive branch comes in order, but in reality, the executive is more powerful, paradoxically, but only subject to the inner organ placed in legislature. So the legislature, through the interlegislature organ, can take the lead and control of the executive. So it is practically true that the executive was responsible and recallable, actually, by the legislature. So their status is dependent, absolutely, on the legislature. But is a true engine may found not in the legislature-wide but in the crucial portion engineered by some elite group of a Communist Party. Of course, they have the official title within the literature. You can see some more details later in the class. And usually we see the Congress as a collegial body, and generally not sensitive to the ranks or other line of authority. But of course, that is true in the literature of a communist state. But the genuine dynamism comes different. So you can see in nature some context of a executive operation. For example, the Presidium of the USSR Supreme Soviet. Who is the Presidium? It is head of legislature, but that is not exactly matched with his counterpart of liberalist, the Congress. And also the Soviet deputy increased in its power by recent 1980s constitutional reform. As a prime figure to fuel the vigor of legislature. It's actually a prime actor in terms of legislation and many responsibilities of the legislature, and is a person. So the legislation process, as you see later, is also distinctive. Most of a formal context of a convention are not important, and they kind of a momentum of a celebration to pass the legislation or the resolution of a keen agenda of state. And mostly the lesser proposal is a planned and a structured and substantiated in much preparation in advance before the presentation to the legislature, and there is no context of debate or a process which comes in a great emphasis about a deliberative democracy in modern times. So usually a communist inner circle or communist LS politics take a lead over the whole process of legislation. So it should be interesting in the minds of liberalist lawyers. So we'll see some aspect. Let me clarify my introduction from the theology of socialist law. So socialist law as a pseudo-religious category stands in contrast to Hindu canon Jewish and Islamic law. From this vantage point, socialist law is a philosophy whose basic task is the fundamental remaking of the conscience of the people. The purpose of this law is, through an intricate network of legal rules, to inculcate in the people such ideals as high moral soundness, unwavering belief in the ideal nature of life under communism, and self-sacrifice for the common good. As usual religion, socialist law is a creative reappearance of religion, albeit in a secular and ideological form. Unlike the other religious phases that look toward Rome and Tübingen, Jerusalem and Damascus, Mecca and Tehran, socialist secular religion looks towards contemporary temples and shrines in Moscow and Peking. Socialist law is a spiritual ideology. As such, it refers to a global system of ideas or symbols which give a shape to the whole of history and social reality. It places the community holding the theology, its life, its destiny, and its unique character on the wide range of universal destiny. So you see the name, the ancient communist, Saint-Simon, he is he proposed a primitive form of communism, but in some naive fashion, and in the scene of idealistic community, you may come across the Western arts usually. So, how much do you like? But the French people should not be well organized to present in a more scientific way, unlike Marx. So once I've read an article depicting three nationals, England and France and Germany. The article points to the hypothetical question. Place an errand to find what is a question. What is a canal? A canal, a kind of animal. The English people, for the question, and in the effort to respond with an answer, English people may back at home and plan to take a journey, like a kind of an anthropologist, and travel around the sites which is most probable for the animal live. They do not know the exact nature of animal, so English people usually be experimental and a practical too, and who usually driven to see the animal, to identify the animal in a physical context. And the German people may return to the research office to search through the information about the animal. What is this animal? And they prefer to make a report or what a response from French people to the question of what this animal is. Camel? In any case, it's interesting. So it gives the community its vocation or sense of special task or significance, or an ultimate significance is history. It is well shown with a social base and a communal function. As a symbolic structure uniting and directing a society's life, socialist law demands that it must be inwardly and conditionally participated in by the members of the group in order to be effective, and for the group to be effective. The inward participation has two aspects: intellectual assent to the validity of symbolic structure of the CROG, and commitment to the obligations of the structure as binding on the self. The societies governed by a socialist law are much more like older religious communities, worried about dissidents and revisionists, and so intent on control of thought, of education, of publications, and of art. Because socialist law appeared in an age of science, is founded on pseudo-scientific theories, and is apparently intended to hold together modern technological societies. It may very well be regarded as first scientific religion in human history. Because it is designed for a scientific society, it tends to base its claim to allegiance on its status as objective science, rather than as divinely revealed or traditionally sacrosanct. The anatomy of a socialist law from its inception to the present reveals its religious character. Even though it is not a religion in true sense of the word, it clearly has religious dimensions. The claim to ultimacy, the deep relatedness to the normative, the requirement of faith or commitment, the fear of heterodoxy and apostasy, ritual rites and mythologies. The fleet of theologians and missionaries, and its role as providing an interpretation of life as a whole that gives life meaning, significance, and purpose. So a normal person usually got on apostasy. He's so very demanding and impersonal. It showed it is an implicit rather than an explicit religion. Engels himself openly acknowledged the religious character of the communist movement in many of his writings. One example of this appears in his discussion of early Christianity, in which he made the following observations. So, the history of early Christianity has notable points of resemblance with the modern working class movement. Like the latter, Christianity was originally a movement of oppressed people. It first appeared as the religion of slaves and emancipated slaves and blah, blah, blah. So, I like to curtail the next. But actually, it is practically important, and also and drives us to some reflections about the nature of humanity and kind of its importance about the modern practice of politics and economics. You can see it. That is not the case only a commission with communism, and of course we now emphasize many points of a human or civic virtue, kind of a frugality or faith, and liberal society goes in same fashion either. So and also the philosophers points to the critical law of humanity between physics and mind, and the context of discussion usually comes in on common basis, actually. So the kind of a philosophical adherence provides what a basic underpinnings of a societal framework. For example, you can see many influences from John Mayer's. I suppose you have a chance to read his treatise on liberty, kind of. And in the liberalist state, the beginning point would be some kind of individual pleasure. How do you see it? Are you pleased? A pleasure. But the Mayer's viewpoint is not just a pleasure. Normally comes, which normally comes in biological context. Rather, his point of investigation begins with kind of higher pleasure, and just and hedonism can come across the words. And if we differ our predicament now faced with in the global context, rather we respect democracy ideologically, and also the civic virtue long held through the Christianity. So they share same base of tradition, but actually they departed from each other to address the needs in specific context they share. And they also single out a democratic governance in the context of communism, and also in the context of liberal society. We ideologically should defer to democracy in basics. But how do you see it all through a resolution of many areas of a social agenda? The countervailing argument may be raised from a plutocracy controversy about the foundation of the United States Constitution. So it is rather formalistic if we turn our eyesight from the humanity or the kind of a prime force to engineer the society. For example, plutocracy argument. So there are a complicated interplay among various factors, which certainly drives us not to avoid the kind of interplay. So Engels also linked religion and communism when he openly endorsed an earlier statement by a French philosopher, Renan. So the words from Renan was reviewed in the first of this section. As an illustration of the religious character of socialist law, let us turn to certain particular rules of substantive laws of two a prototypical socialist legal systems in the modern world, the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. The quasi-religious character of Soviet socialist law can best be illustrated by drawing attention to some provisions of this system, their system's four leading codes: the Constitution of the USSR, the Criminal Code of RSFSR, the Family Code of RSFSR, and the Civil Code of RSFSR. The preamble to the USSR Constitution of 1977 directly repudiates the philosophy of individualism and instead calls upon all Soviet citizens to be better brothers keepers. So we have some different point in the beginning. So individualism, as you see in the John Mayer's case, what we start from pleasure, hedonism, and also a brothers keepers. They favor the communist context of community at first. So we have also different words denoting the ideology: communism, liberalism. In keeping with this ideology, the preamble describes the Soviet society as that in which the law of life is concerned of all for the good of each and concern of each for the good of all. The semantic work is, in some sense, underexploited. So epistemology is one of the branches philosophers usually recalls in class. For example, what is a policy? So we have some medium level of agreement from two camps in a contrast, a communism liberal. They may have some differences from the beginning point, but they may share some common sense and and the nature of a agreement, say, revolving around a policy. The word policy in medieval French is what means a police or polish. Two words may influence so is a ancient understanding about polish, polish. So then we can see the stage of a public administration. Both camps may share to address their needs in terms of policy. They revolving around the word policy. You can see a diplomacy, effectiveness, efficiency, and also, but in negative nuance, a shrewdness. So you see later portion. Actually, the legal system is a kind of product, a push forward and dealt with in its limitation actually by the political leaders and Lenin, Starchuk, and they are great policymakers and administrators, and also we can identify the same element in the process of creating the United States Constitution. The founding fathers, which are great policymakers, to redress the chaos of a new republic. They managed tactfully through the dominant interest at the time, the commercial interest, as I said in last class, plutocracy usually. So, in keeping with this ideology, the preamble describes Soviet society as that in which the law of life is concern of all for the good of each, and concern of each for the good of all. The preamble further stipulates that the citizens' real rights and freedom are inextricably linked with their obligation and responsibility to society. As such, for every right a citizen receives from the society, he owes a reciprocal duty to that same society. To make sure that a right given to an individual citizen is not used for an antisocial purpose, Article 39, Part 2 of the Constitution stipulates that the enjoyment by citizens of their rights and freedoms must not be to the detriment of the interests of society or the state, or infringe the rights of other citizens. Since every spiritual movement needs a temporal leader to guide it, the Soviet Constitution assigns that role to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Thus, in Article 6, it refers to the CPSU as the leading and guiding force of Soviet society and the nucleus of its political system. The CPSU exists for the people and serves the people. As the final interpreter of the theology of Soviet law, the CPSU is deemed to be infallible. However, the party is not final because it is infallible. Rather, it is infallible because it is final authority within the partocracy. So, the word partocracy, it has very powerful to have you understand the socialist legal system. And so we now stop here, and for the next session we'll have a further points about a socialist theory of law and move to another next section, the distribution of socialist law. Thank you for attention, and I'll be